all of Ward 4 for having me. It is a delight to be back together in this space. I think many of you know I was the chair of Ward 5 before I ran for City Council, and Ward 5 and Ward 4 have always been kindred committees. So I feel like, if not quite at home, sort of in a cousin's home when I am at Ward 4. I represent Mission Hill, Fenway, Back Bay, Beacon Hill, and the West End. So it's really the Fenway corner of my district that's in Ward 4, including some of the wonderful members of this committee. I'm proud to be your counselor. Jonathan asked me to swing by, and so I thought I would just do a little bit of update about some of the council committee work that I've been doing. And then I know that Ward 4 is a good crowd for questions, so I'll try to leave some time for that. So I am the chair of the City Services and Innovation Technology Committee of the City Council, and also the Boston's COVID Recovery Committee. So I thought I'd give you 3 quick updates, one about city services, one about innovation technology, and one about the American Rescue Plan funds that we have. And then, like I said, happy to take any questions. So on the city services front, I want to do a little bit of an advertisement preview. On April 11th at 10 a.m., we are having a big hearing. This is chaired and introduced by me about the trash contracts in the city of Boston. What do you need?
People, I'll let you give you my chair, and that gives you better angle.
Oh, is that better? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm here. So, is this okay? Okay. So if you don't know that the trash contracts are an exciting topic, you just don't know enough yet. As I think lots of folks who live in the South End and Fenway are aware, and certainly in my district, especially in the Back Bay, Beacon Hill, every neighborhood of the city is different, and the amount of space that's available for trash bins is different, and whether people routinely are able to use containers or not varies. And so, especially in the neighborhoods of the city where not everybody's able to store a container, the sidewalks are too narrow for containers, we have this problem of the overnight rat buffet that we put out twice a week. And then we're all like, gee, I wonder why the rat population is increasing. And it's sort of like, the way I think about it is, you might as well imagine that those plastic bags are invisible, right? You might as well imagine that we're just dumping a bunch of food on the sidewalk a couple of times a week. And so, our committee's really been pushing on this. There's some folks in the South End who have been experimenting with neighborhood group-based containerization strategies. We've been talking a lot to the department about how to shrink the time window that trash is out on the street. The reason that trash goes out on the street or is allowed to go out overnight right now is because pickup starts so early in the morning, and it's not reasonable to say to somebody that they have to be up at 6 a.m., which is why we let people put it out starting at 5. But one of the things that we focused in on is that if we could have more targeted windows for different parts of the city, and you could know, oh, your trash is coming in this 5-hour window or even this 8-hour window, we could really get a lot more of it down to only being out during the day on the same day, which, because rats are nocturnal, would make a huge difference. And so basically one of the things that's come up is that to really do this, we have to redo the city's trash contract, because it's the one-size-fits-all citywide trash contract that's really preventing us from having this kind of customized approach. And the time is now. The trash contract is going to get rewritten or not rewritten or customized in whatever way in the next 6 months for the following 3 years. And we've gotten the city to hire a trash fellow. Imagine that as your title. Whose only job is to try to pick apart these contracts and think about how to make them better. We're also interested in the fact that the reality is that with one citywide contract, it's only really only like 1 or 2 folks who can bid for this work. And so when we think about making more city contracts available to contractors of color, doing things that really spread the wealth in terms of these city contracts, there's much more opportunity if we can break it up. So we're having a big conversation about that in the council chamber at City Hall, but you can also tune in via Zoom hybrid, much like this meeting, on April 11th at 10 a.m. I want to encourage everybody to join us for that. Another thing that I'm working on in the innovation technology category, and in many ways it's a extension of the excellent work that Margaret McKenna, who's a member here and chair of the Human Rights Commission. So yeah, everyone should applaud Margaret. She's here. one of your local city celebrities here. The Human Rights Commission did a lot of work in the last couple of years looking at kind of differential internet broadband access across the city. And this is a really tricky area because the data is all sort of proprietary and held by the companies themselves. And we know experientially that our lower income residents are having a worse and different access to internet. Like we know that. But a lot of the times we haven't had the kind of precision of data that we need to really show that and figure out how to remedy it. And during the pandemic, it became just totally obvious that this whole approach where the internet sort of got introduced and treated as an amenity, something that's like nice to have, and that therefore can kind of your access to it can be throttled by your ability to pay, really doesn't make sense anymore. Like if it ever made sense, right? The internet is much more like a utility. It's something that you have to have access to, and that we really should be regulating access to, because if you don't have sufficiently good broadband access, like you can't get on to school as we saw in the pandemic, you can't do remote work, you can't, even join a meeting, a civic meeting, a meeting like this, the hearing that I was talking about a minute ago. So we're really focused on how to really move digital equity forward in the city. There's a couple of big things that have really helped on this. One of them is the ACP Affordable Connectivity Program that the federal government funded as part of the pandemic funding. And what was awesome about that is it basically provides a $30 a month benefit to help people buy internet. And it also set a standard where all the major internet providers had to have a $30 a month plan that met certain minimum standards. So actually the city of Boston's pumped a bunch of money into getting households that qualify signed up. And we made big increases just in the last year in how many households that are eligible are signed up. We still have some more room to go. Like we know that we've got more low-income households that could qualify for this free internet that aren't getting it yet. But we're doing a lot on that, and we put some of our American Rescue Plan money into getting that word out to people. But we also did a kind of assessment report that came out last fall that was on the heels of the report that the HRC did. And we have a better map now than we did before of where in the city the fiber connectivity is weakest. And of course, there are definitely clusters in our affordable housing developments. And both BHA, although we now actually run the city's internet, the city has its own municipal BONET system, and we now run it to the community building of every public housing development in the city, which is a big step forward, but it's not yet going to those households. But even the kind of third-party, private, nonprofit affordable housing complexes are more likely to have either not have fiber running to the building, or sometimes have fiber running to the building, but just not have the systems in the building to get the quality internet that they should be able to access. So the really exciting thing about that, and I know that's a weird way to describe it, is that in the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law that passed under Biden, there was a bunch of money for internet. But at first, we were quite disappointed because that money had been very torqued in the direction of rural broadband. So, which is nice. If you live out, in rural America, you need access to broadband. We're happy for you. The feds have you covered. But for us, obviously in Boston, that's not our situation. The good news is that there actually is a kind of carve out pot of money for specifically like getting quality internet to affordable housing developments. And so actually what the city's about to launch, and it'll get kind of more formally launched in the coming weeks, is a pilot to take a few specific affordable housing developments and do a kind of like soup to nuts review of what they need infrastructure wise to have excellent internet. Because basically the time is now to put our applications in to access that federal funding. So we're trying to like front load all of this assessment work so that the city can get in line. And that's a big theme in city government today. There's way more federal money available for infrastructure than there has been in a generation. But a lot of it is competitive. So a lot of it is like the city has to be proactive about recognizing what programs we're a good fit for, do a lot of research, and then get these applications in and just try to beat out other municipalities and states in the country, which, I mean, you could say, maybe is not ideal, but it is the landscape that we find ourselves in. That's kind of a transition to my other committee, COVID recovery, which again, we authorized this major package of American Rescue Plan funding last summer in July. It's a joint mayor council endeavor. So it's about about 450, let's just say rounding, $1 million that the city got. That it was kind of unspecified federal COVID recovery aid, so we got to have a lot of appropriation power over what to do with it. We in the city of Boston allocated more than 200 million of that to housing programs. I think we are the city in the country that allocated the most of our general COVID recovery funds to housing. That's like, a really major focus of ours. And so that's like the biggest piece of the puzzle, but we also allocated a bunch of other pots inside of that. One that other people in here have heard me talk about before is the Power Corps program, which is this green jobs program we've launched in the city of Boston. I think the most exciting thing that we're doing with ARPA funds is where we've really thought about the puzzle of what do you do with a bunch of one-time money that you want to use to tackle your generational issues, right? Because the problem is it's great to have one-time money in the sense that it's great to have money, but it's not great to then spend it and sort of fall off a cliff and not be able to continue the work that you're doing. So we had to think really intentionally about, okay, if we've got this surge of resources now, how do they set us up for the long term? One of the ways that we identified would be really valuable is this green jobs program, because the city of Boston, we're actually creating major demand for green jobs. So with our, for instance, the Birdo regulation, and you may have seen in the papers, the city is moving towards adopting the green stretch energy code. Basically, we're creating a market for a ton of building retrofit work. And so the question is, who's going to do that work? Well, it should be young people who are on and underemployed in Boston's neighborhoods, right? Especially our communities of color, especially young people who may have been court involved. Like, we have this opportunity because the labor pool to do this work does not exist. And so like another space that's like this is the city's got this new urban forestry plan. It says we're going to add a ton of trees. We're not the only municipality. There's municipalities all around who are all trying to add trees. The problem is if you only add trees and you don't prune them and you don't care for them and you don't have then you lose them. And then you're just, you're Sisyphus rolling the rock up the hill. And so we really identified, hey, let's take these areas where we know that we have a labor need and we know everyone else is going to have a labor need. And let's train Bostonians to do these jobs. And then let's create a pipeline that we won't need to keep subsidizing it as a pipeline because the demand for this labor will end up subsidizing it. Once you prove the concept, then it's like, oh gosh, literally everyone is begging people to be arborists for them right now. So why shouldn't it be everyone saying, you should go to the city of Boston. They've got that amazing program. I'm really excited about Power Corps because we had the first class last year. They've graduated, and now the city is noticing these new tree jobs, and we've got folks who are poised to move from the training program into these city jobs. So it's really coming to fruition. And in a similar vein, the program that got announced last week, along with adopting the stretch energy code of spending $10 million retrofitting affordable housing to a really high green standard. Well, $10 million is great, but compared to the amount of affordable housing that we need to retrofit, it's like a drop in the bucket. But we're making it a really significant drop by intentionally trying to use it to figure out what are the most cost-effective mechanisms to save the most energy in these affordable developments, as quickly as possible. So that basically we spend that 10 million, we prove the concept. We know there's going to be a bunch of money at the federal and state level for this purpose, but we need to spend those dollars effectively, right? So, and there's a million things in this. Jacob's in the room. There's a lot of transportation stuff in all of these COVID recovery buckets. But I've now talked about a bunch of things, so I will go to questions. But basically, I just want people to know that is very much how we've thought about the COVID recovery money in the city of Boston. Is both how do you tackle the big generational challenges, the things that COVID made worse, uncovered, right? The really big stuff, but do it in a way where the one-time money will leave you a lot better at the end of the day. So yeah, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. So first, let's give a round of applause to Councilor Bach. Okay, so the floor is open for questions. I will watch Zoom. If you are on Zoom, please use the hand raise function so that I can see your question. If you are in here, feel free to raise your hand. I'll probably move I'll ask you to kind of take the microphone device here for the people who are on Zoom who can hear you as well. But any questions?
Hi, I'm Steve Morgan.
Speaking to the,
Yes, ma'am. I'm Steve Morgan. I live on Moran Avenue. Does the trash contract include recycling? Are they the same?
they are not the same, but they are both being looked at and rewritten. So they are technically different contracts. Recycling is actually the great frustration of recycling is that people used to pay us for our recycling and now we pay them. So like the whole world recycling market has collapsed. And so that's kind of an upside down thing. It's actually one of the reasons that as the city grows our composting program, which some of you may be participating in the pilot, we're actually, one of the things that I made the city spend some ARPA money on is making sure that we move towards actually owning our own infrastructure for the back end of composting, for producing the compost. Because with recycling, we basically ended up being sort of led by the nose by these large recycling contractors because we have no ability to, we don't have a recycling processing plant, right? And that's like a pretty hard thing to put in the city of Boston. It's a little bit more plausible for us to actually own and control our composting like capacity. And if we do that, we can probably also service some of the surrounding municipalities and maybe even make it break even. But did you have a follow-up to that?
Is April 11th going to address that as well?
Yeah, so if you have comments on recycling, please come to that as well. Yes, we will talk about both. So composting is less the focus of this one because we have another hearing order in about that. I'm actually obsessed with the composting. I am on the wait list for the pilot. I have not gotten my own. Just so you know. Well, I'm very glad it's working for all of you. But yeah, so we are doing a bunch on that. That's going to be less the focus of this. Obviously, though, the invention of the composting like pilot is also a piece of this puzzle because, of course, if we can get the food waste out of the general trash, that's also a huge part of pest control, right? Yes.
And then after that.
Yeah, hi Kenzie. Basing on the comments about the food recycle, the experiment is working very well. The website information from the city to when trash is picked up, particularly around holidays, we're part of the pilot. When's it going to be expanded to the entire city?
The composting one?
Yes.
Where is it? Yeah. So composting, so the original plan was 10,000 people in the first year, which we're in. And there was supposed to be another 10,000 and another 10,000 for 2 more years of households, not people. By the time we were doing signups last summer, we had 17,000 people. So we had 7,000 people on the wait list for the second year straight away. And we're now well past the next 10,000. So I think just so you know, we're in the like few weeks where councilors theoretically don't know what the Wu administration is going to propose in their budget, but sometimes in practice we do know. And so I am hopeful that what we are going to hear from the administration is a desire to accelerate the composting pilot and kind of move past those 10-10-10 goals. But just so people understand, the rate limiting factor on getting to citywide is actually the back end stuff I mentioned. Currently, we're already basically using all of the compost processing capacity in the greater Boston area just by us jumping into this game. We are way bigger than everybody else. There is not enough digesters and static piles currently existing to manage composting for the city of Boston. So that's why there has to be new infrastructure for us to do this at a citywide scale. And I just don't want us to just pay somebody else to do it and then control our destiny on this. Like, I think we should control our destiny on this. And also, because there's a lot of opinions about what the best way to do composting is, we can have a better version if we control it ourselves.
And I want to take a question from the Zoom, Steve Fox, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Okay. Councilor, thank you very much, especially talking about trash, which is the one thing that we can talk about tonight that touches absolutely everybody on a weekly basis. I just wanted to say that because the downtown neighborhoods are the only neighborhoods that are completely uncontainerized with the exception of where they can actually be stored. such as recycles or used in alleyways or whatever. I wonder if it would be great to bring together a working group of the downtown neighborhoods, because we have special challenges in the new contract in terms of timing, in terms of predictability. There are all kinds of issues that I'm not sure can be completely addressed in one hearing. But I just wanted to reach out and say that because we've talked about this trash issue for almost 20 years, it's an opportunity for us to find better solutions with the contractor and things that really will help neighbors within the downtown neighborhood. So I just wanted to offer opportunity. There's a bunch of people I know that would love to participate in that kind of a working group.
No, I think that's a great idea. And yeah, definitely, we have no hope of covering this whole topic in the hearing on the 11th. We want to continue to push the ball forward. I think, like I said, we have a good partner in the department. Like, they brought this trash fellow on. I think we're oriented in the same direction. But yeah, Steve, I think it'd be great to pull together a working group of the downtown neighborhoods. And I agree. I mean, obviously part of my agenda as a counselor who represents largely downtown neighborhoods is to separate out this contract enough that we can really target the issues that are specific to the areas where we're not able to containerize, because it just isn't an issue in the same scale in the parts of the city where folks have been.
The composting trash thing is fascinating though, because I think with my composting, I take my garbage out like once every 2 weeks now, and it doesn't smell. So I mean, like, that's almost the answer.
So I do think, yeah, no, there's no question that composting is a big piece of the puzzle, and it does really help if everybody's doing it. We're probably a little ways away from getting everyone to compost. We obviously want to make that possible. I think that the places where they've driven like kind of universal adoption of compost separate strands are places in the country where they charge people for trash. So that's been the classic move, is like, if you charge people for trash and you say, but I'll take your recycling and your compost for free, it drives people behavior change. But in Boston, because we don't charge anybody for trash, there isn't really that like incentive structure at the household level. So I think we probably need to solve both still, but definitely I think the better we make composting and the easier for everybody, the more that we can solve the problem that way.
Yeah, question and then ask a question.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm just wondering whether this conversation of recycling is getting to the public housing communities, and how that's being approached.
Yeah, great question. So, and yeah, the question, sorry, right. The question was, how is this question of recycling getting to the public housing communities, and how is it being approached? So, Boston actually, like, the Public Works works with the BHA to like pick up all their trash and recycling, which like, you know, in some places it's handled totally separately, but in Boston it's not. It is in the sense that BHA has its own like dumpsters and locations and stuff on site and manages like how it gets collected on site, but it's the citywide system that gets it collected. So in terms of and there have been various drives at BHA around recycling awareness over time, and like a lot of like multilingual information out to residents. I think, you know, everybody should know the dynamic in public housing and everywhere in the city is that American recycling went in this single stream direction, which meant that we like totally abandoned teaching people about what was recyclable and what wasn't, because we kind of messaged that now everything's recyclable. And so now all the recycling bales are basically worthless because they contain a ton of contaminating material. And that's part of why no one will pay us for our recycling. The problem is that the way to solve that problem is a bunch of intensive public education and going back to sorting, which is not the direction that any of us went. Like, so that's kind of a bad news bulletin, but like, that's kind of where we are. And so I would say, I know that like, you know, over time, there's been conversations about, you know, is there enough education about recycling, and especially in the public housing communities. But I would say that right now, I think I think our level of producing like high quality recycling bales is pretty poor, but it's poor across the city. And probably whatever strategy we're gonna have to come up with, we're gonna have to do in partnership with BHA, but we're gonna have to do it just as much in our communities around the city.
I want to ask a question, and also, I know that there's a question from the Zoom as well. One thing that I know that you've been active on the council is around pilot for the city, pilot being payment in lieu of taxes. I always like to joke, although it's arguable that Councilor Braden's district is more of the epicenter of untaxed institutions in the city of Boston, but I like to say it's right. And then was being curious because I know that conversation about how to make sure that the kind of the large institutions that are tax exempt, but are still fairly like very kind of well endowed institutions are contributing to the city. That there's been kind of discussions ongoing for the past 2 sessions in the council, and was curious about where does the status of that currently stand, especially as given that when federal funds do dry out, as they will, the city will need resources to do a lot of the work that it's doing and wants to do.
Yeah, so I think probably mine and Councilor Braden's districts are rivals, and I had the pilot chair last council session, and now she's got it, but we work very closely together on this. So for context for folks, the payment in lieu of taxes program, Boston's kind of came out of a bunch of conversation and a big commission that was pulled together in 2009. And the original formula of that was to ask our large nonprofit institutions to pay a quarter of what they would pay if they were a for-profit and owned the like land and buildings that they own, and then to take that quarter and to split it in half, and you only had to pay half of it in cash, and then the idea was that you'd pay the other half in community benefits. And so, and largely the institutions that were subject to this were, because they picked a kind of a cutoff for like how much your property value was, it basically was hospitals, universities, and arts institutions. Now, a sidebar is the arts institutions were not really at the table, the commission that came up with this, and have always kind of protested their inclusion. And so very few of them have paid the pilot because they don't really think they should be subject to it. The universities and hospitals really went 2 different directions. The hospitals have mostly consistently paid that 1/8, right? That's really being asked for in cash. And the universities range from VU, which like pays in the 80% of the ask, to Northeastern, that's down in the 20% of the ask, to BC, which has never paid any of it. So I think, it's interesting because the pilot, on the one hand, the Boston's pilot program is looked at as a model nationwide in the sense that we actually did get our institutions at a significant scale to like recognize the need to contribute to the city's tax base because of all the like things that we do right together. And I think we all really know Boston is a city that benefits hugely from our institutions, and our institutions benefit hugely from Boston, right? It's the definition of a symbiotic relationship. There are some things about the way that formula was come up with in that moment in 2009 that I think would be different now. For instance, the way that 25% number was come to was kind of the idea that it was police, fire, and snow removal. And so it's roughly 25% of the city budget. And so the theory was like, those are the things that the institutions used. I think that now there's more recognition that like the institutions are also dependent on like a great Boston public school system. And that of course our nonprofit institutions are not exempt from being part of the like deep racial economic divide in this city, and that like everybody has like more of a role in kind of the whole picture, as opposed to the sort of like, here's the 25% way in which the city affects our life. The other thing that has come, so that question of the proportion has been a kind of ongoing conversation. The question of how much people pay actually has been an ongoing conversation. The valuations were all based on property improvements that existed in 2009. And even though they've been inflated by a certain factor, if you built a new building since 2009, it's not reflected in the request, which is kind of a weird snapshot in time thing. So that was a big thing that we went after last term. And we actually, we have gotten assessing to do updated valuations, although they have not yet been reflected in the ask to the institutions. And then another piece of the puzzle is the community benefits. And so the question of kind of who decides what is a community benefit that could sort of substitute for a cash payment. And I think, and we have a system whereby institutions identify the community benefits and sort of register with a city office what they are. I think the hospitals have kind of been made by the Attorney General in recent years to go through this determination of need process on other fronts that have caused them to do more kind of like systematic surveying of the community of like what the real needs are and kind of matching the community benefits to those. The universities don't have a similar process, so you're a little more dependent on how much a university really talks to its surrounding communities for the kind of the quality of what's being proposed. And I think there's like a fundamental democratic governance question too, which is that like with tax money, it goes into the general fund and we get to collectively have budget conversations together about how to spend it. With community benefits, that isn't happening in the same way, right? Because it's sort of being decided by institutional committees. So I think there's some strong interest on the council side and amongst many advocates to kind of pull that more properly into a like space of democratic accountability and conversation. Also, you know, COVID really showed us what it can look like when the institutions in the city collaborate on like critical needs. Like it's, you know, it's not that I have anything against like random yoga classes on the second floor of some building that are in theory open to the community members, you know, but like what we saw in COVID was, you know, when Suffolk provided us with a dorm to de-densify the homeless population, like that was an in-kind provision of a critical resource, right? Like I think that there are, and I would say that when, you know, some of our nonprofits are providing like straight up arts teachers and music teachers in BPS, right? Like that's a real thing that, you know, is a critical educational need for the city. So I think part of the ongoing pilot conversation is how do we shift to more of an emphasis on those kinds of core needs and kind of the city and the institutions working together to make sure that we're not just talking about community benefits that are nice to have. We're really talking about the like together collaborating on the core needs of the city, and that if your institution is providing benefits in kind instead of providing cash, it's because you actually have a comparative advantage in providing like excellence in that sphere, right? And so, or you have a wonderful thing like a building or like something else that can really serve. So we're having a hearing on the pilot and specifically focused on that community benefits focus also in April. I'm blanking on the date right now, but I think it's like the 21st of April. So in Councilor Braden's committee. And the reality of this is that it has been waiting a little bit on a new mayoral administration because the original pilot commission was sort of convened by the mayor. And because it is fundamentally a voluntary program, because state law prevents the city from taxing the institutions, it needs to be a collaborative conversation. And so my achievement as pilot chair was that I got Mayor Walsh to commit to convening a new pilot commission 2 days before President Biden called him to become labor secretary. And then I got Mayor Janey to commit in June of 2021 to convening a pilot commission. So I think we do hope that there will be a kind of next step on that score. Yeah.
We do have to wrap. So we do have to wrap to go on to the next speaker. But if people have follow-up questions for you, how can they reach you? Will be the final one.
So email me at kenzie.bach@boston.gov. It's kenzie.bok@boston.gov. Or call the office 617-635-4225. Or just, ask Jonathan how to chase me, and he's very persistent and effective. But it's a delight to be with Ward 4, and I love representing this ward and all of my district. And so thanks for having me.
Awesome. We can get another round of applause. I will invite Vanessa Snow from MassVOTE to present, and then I will go to the 9 Suffolk candidates. So Vanessa, if you are with us, I will put you on spotlight.
I'm here.
Vanessa, are you here?
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa Snow. I am the Director of Policy and Organizing at MassVOTE. And Jonathan invited me to talk about what's happening in regards to the redistricting process. As you know, a few months ago, in September, the city council passed a new redistricting map, as they do every 10 years, and passed one that that really was aligned with the intent of the Voting Rights Act, in that it would, the biggest changes that had to happen were among District 2 and District 3 city council districts. District 2, that's Councilor Flynn's district, it grew of about 13,000 new voters in the last 10 years due to development in the seaport, and District 3 was needed to add a couple thousand voters. And so that had to be designed in a way to preserve the diversity in both districts. And from the advocate point of view, the map that the city council and Mayor Wu passed does in fact do that. There has been a challenge in court from different civic organizations and residents in District 2 and 3 in South Boston and Dorchester, challenging this map. And so the first hearing is going to happen next Tuesday. It was supposed to happen last week, but due to weather, they pushed it. But there's going to be 2 different hearings. But Jonathan asked me to just come in and share that update, and perhaps I can answer any questions. As of right now, on the plaintiff side, that includes the civic organizations and residents. They have a few elected officials that have been called formally to submit testimony. And on the city side, the list of testifiers as of right now is a lawyer who they had consulted through the redistricting process. But I imagine that after the first hearing on the 28th, there may be a few more, I guess witnesses might be the correct legal term, to attend. And so, yeah, I mean, Jonathan, what are some of the specific questions that you think would be helpful for me to try and answer?
I just think in some ways, some of the key top lines about the values of the map that was passed. I know that this part of the city did see some changes because we're at the part of Ed Flynn's district shed territory, but he gained territory in some parts of Ward 4, although then some parts of his old district went to Councilor Anderson. And for people following kind of the lawsuit or knowing that of some of the what the key top lines about why the map that was passed was important.
Okay, sure. So like I said before, due to the huge increase in development in District 3, I think Councilor Flynn's district needed to lose the most. And I think for that reason, and also including, that you can't redistrict people out, and that you need to have, a critical mass of Black, Latino, and Asian residents included in that district, so that the way how the Voting Rights Act, which is federal, states that any community is able to elect the candidate of their choice. And so, you know, of the different maps that were presented in District 3, that would have involved either cutting some of the south end out of the district and perhaps putting that in either District 3 or District 7. That wouldn't have worked for District 7 in that that would be considered packing people of color into solely District 7. And then the other side of that was to lose some precincts, specifically around Old Colony and McCormick in South Boston. That would have to move to District 3, which is Frank Baker's district. And I think for Councilor Flynn, he loves his district, and so I think it was like it was very challenging for him to understand that in order to preserve the diversity of voting in his district, those changes, and that district being the most that had to lose, those changes were just, it was inevitable for those changes to happen. But yeah, I like just to say like that the Voting Rights Act was the key framework that the City Council was asked to uphold, so that you have to draw the lines. You can't put every like largely communities of color into one particular district, like District 3 or like District 4 and District 7, which have large Black populations. You need to be able to make sure that voters in District 3 and District 2, that the diversity of those districts are preserved. So, I think the challenge to this map, I think, has to do with I think it in this redistricting process, after the map was re-precincted, it had to be redistricted, and I don't think that there was a way to make the entire City Council, especially residents of District 3 and District 2, satisfied in a way that wouldn't have pushed people of color into districts that already had met the thresholds, without it being considered packing people of color into certain districts and lowering the amount of people of color represented in other districts.
Vanessa, while we're here, you can see if anybody has questions about redistricting in the city, and then we can move on and then go on to other speakers.
Great.
I think talking about where they are, because otherwise said to somebody like me is actually meaningless, sorry to say. So it really would help to mention parts of the city by name.
Map is the only way to do it, but there's no way to.
Right.
But there's no,
Well, but generally,
they're cut this way.
Yeah,
Vanessa,
well,
do you have those on hand? I could pull that up and share the
I
new map if that's helpful.
don't have the map on hand, but like I do know of like the kind of neighborhoods by name that were affected.
Yeah.
Send it out after.
Yeah, I'll send that on the notes. The general overview is District 2 is South Boston, Chinatown in the South End.
Right.
District
So
7 is
parts.
South
So
End,
yeah.
Roxbury, Fenway.
So a few
Yeah.
precincts in South Boston, specifically around where there is a lot of public housing, it had to move into from District 2 to District 3, which is currently represented by Frank Baker. There also was part of, in order to, there had to be some precincts between District 4, which is Brian Worrell's district. There had to be a couple of precincts between District 3, Frank Baker's district, and District 4, Worrell's district, in order to increase the amount of people of color represented in District 3. I believe that area was affected was like the Lower Mills area. And then, I think the South End has, that was a piece that was left unchanged and remains in District 3. And that was something that the communities really wanted. Or
So just quickly, so that we can go on to other speakers, I'll send this out as follow-up. This is the map that's being discussed, where you can see you can see it's kind of hard to see in this capacity, isn't it? I will send it as follow-up where you can get a clearer sense of what the borders are.
As she's talking about.
Yeah.
yeah.
But Vanessa, thank you for that. If there's follow-up, I can send that. Yes, thank you. Take a round of applause.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay, and then I think Amelia had a very quick update from the nominating committee, and then I will go to candidates. Amelia, are you here?
I am. Hi, guys. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well,
I
good evening.
spotlighted the wrong person. Okay.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm the real Amelia. I'm standing up. My name is Amelia Alberg. Good evening to everyone. I'm the chair of the nominating committee. I just wanted to talk to you all to let you know and thank you for your service and responding to our emails. So the nominating committee has the great good pleasure of recommending a slate and talking through some options. And so essentially, we are endeavoring to create a new leadership slate, hopefully vote on it by April. And so we met a couple of times to talk about who would be our chair, who would be our co-chair, who would be the new outreach person, who would be the secretary and treasurer. And so I wanted to just throw out kind of what we are endeavoring to do, and also make a plug that if you'd like to run, that you could just send me your names by April 6th, so that we can vote a new leadership slate and during our April meeting. So in terms of options and opportunity, we had thought, or we had recommending that, in terms of chair for next year, to put forth Ryan Hatcher, who is now the treasurer, and then also to endeavor to see if Jonathan Cohn would want to be the co-chair, and then also ask Grant Young to be the treasurer, and then Carol Lasky to be the new outreach person. We're asking that Andrew, who's the secretary now, would remain secretary. And so that's kind of where we are. I learned, again, being the nominating chair, that we have to, in our bylaws, have a man and a woman be the chair and co-chair. So I just wanted to throw that out there for public consumption. Again, if there are people that want to run, we're still accepting nominations and everything, but I just wanted to throw that out there in terms of what we're recommending or what has come to the fold. So that's the update. Nothing, I want to reiterate that nothing is etched in stone. This is a democracy, right? So we all vote, and we want to make sure that the process is fair. So I would put in that, if people want to run, just let me know by April 6th. So that's my update. The floor is yours. I see my time.
Thank you. And just as a quick qualifying point, you were using, when you said co-chair, you meant vice chair, for what you were talking
Yes,
about.
vice chair, exactly.
So yes, and then just to flag the one point that Amelia noted, and thank you for all of the work of the nominating committee. As kind of given that folks are term limit, several of us are term limited in our current positions. Massachusetts Democratic Party rules state that you can't have like the chair and vice chair shouldn't be of the same gender. But if you have, let's say, co-chair, 2 co-chairs and a vice chair, 1 chair and 2 vice chairs, it's just that you can't have basically all 3 of them. So that if that option could work, if we added a female co-chair or a female co-vice chair, was what she said it. I can send text follow-up.
Another.
Yeah.
Different.
Yes.
You don't want to have 2 co-chairs that are men and a woman vice chair.
Well, no,
That would be not nice.
yeah, no, that is the ideal is to add a woman as a
I would
co-chair.
object to that.
Oh, no, that's what I'm thinking, that you add a woman as co-chair, you add a woman as have a man and woman as co-vice chairs with the man as chair. You can have a man and woman as co-chairs, but it can't be man.
Can't
Do I
be
hear-
2 male co-chairs.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah,
Her line,
Shouldn't, but you, that would be a mess.
So that would be a bad thing.
2 co-chairs are a chair and a vice chair. Because we have had 2 co-chairs over the years,
Yeah.
and it didn't work very well.
I have a chair and a vice chair.
yeah, we'll send out follow-up
Or you
on
could have 2
this.
co-chairs.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I want to reiterate too, that if you're interested in running, I think I hear Margaret McKenna's voice.
Yes,
If,
it
yeah, if you're interested in running,
recognizable.
Margaret. If you're interested in running, Margaret, just saying, if you can, I'll send out a follow-up email. But I also want to acknowledge the members of the nominating committee, who are Ben Siegel, Jane Siegel, Grant Young, and Ann Renan, as members of supporting this venture. So we'll send out a follow-up email, but we would like to really make sure that we have a slate signed, sealed, delivered to this body, so that we can endeavor to move forward. And again, acknowledging the current slate that we have, and just celebrating all of the work that y'all have done over the years. When we talk about at the nominating level, what are we envisioning when we talk about community? What do we envision when we talk about Ward 4 and this new slate? Really kind of figuring out what the ward will look like now, but also what the ward look like in the future, and making sure that slate embodies that spirit. So I just want to put that out there as well. So we will follow up with an email, but just wanted to flag that.
Do we have any time to discuss or?
We're doing, so that's their next meeting, that we'll be formally discussing that.
Yeah,
That would be to co-chair for sure, just because I do travel for work. Honored to have that name thrown out there, but just knowing the logistics of my job, I know we can do virtual, but co-chair would be great.
absolutely.
Okay, but Amelia, thank you.
Thank
For
you.
the work of the nominating committee, and we will send follow-up.
Okay.
Okay, to move along with our agenda, we will bring up candidates for the 9th Suffolk. So John Moran, and then after you speak, and then Q&A, Chary Ortiz. Take a few minutes, introduce yourself, tell us why you're running, and then we'll do Q&A.
Okay, if I get just a stand or
Yeah, feel free.
so like. Can everyone hear me? Is that okay? Good. So hi, everybody. Thanks very much to the Ward 4 Committee and Councilor Bach, thank you for being here as well. I also like to acknowledge Chary Ortiz. Thank you for being here. If anyone knows what it's like to, before it's me, so thank you for being here. So I just want to introduce myself. My name is John Moran, and I'm running to be your next state representative because I believe better days are ahead if we work together. I'm a leader with purpose, and I have both the heart and the drive to get us there. Now, over the last so many years, we've had tremendous leaders in John Santiago, Byron Rushing, and other great leaders like Mel King. But they would also acknowledge that, you know, they would encourage us to keep moving forward. We have a lot of things to do, to include more work to do. That includes sort of helping the quality of life, whether you're in the Polish Triangle or Orchard Park or in Copley Square or out here in the South End. There's a lot of work to do. So I'm a leader that gets things done. I've proven that in my community outreach and in my ability to incite real change. And I do that by leveraging my experience in the corporate sector and also through my advocacy for affordable housing residents right here in the South End. So to get to better days, we have to do a few things. First, we need to have affordable housing of all types and transparent, community-led development. We need to solve the crisis that is at Mass and Cass, and it's a humanitarian crisis indeed. And we need to raise the quality of life for all residents, no matter your zip code. So just to personalize this a little bit, from an affordability perspective, my partner Michael and I moved to the South End 24 years ago. Sort of hard to process that, but it was that long ago, almost a quarter century ago. And we moved into a little house. It was a condo on Waltham Street, and we were able to do that. I think it was about 30% of our income, or a little less than that. So we were able to sort of plant a seed, move into the condo, and start our life here in the South End. The issue is that that's not possible today. The costs are just way too high, and we need to solve that. We need to create housing of all types, including affordable ownership, which we can use through the Commonwealth Builder Fund and other funds so that families can settle down, plant roots here, and live out their lives. We also need to talk about development a little bit. And I like to call myself, in a way, an accidental activist, in the sense that I got involved with a development that was pretty close to where we are today, and learned a lot about the Article 80 process and how that works. And what I really determined very quickly was that the system doesn't work for the common citizen. The community voice is not heard up front. And so we need to really address that head on with community-led planning first development. And I know that the current administration, including Councilor Bach, have really focused on that, and they're really working on that hard. And I really applaud that effort because it really will help us as a community. When it comes to Mass and Cass, it's viewed to me as a humanitarian crisis, and that's for a reason. My brother and other family members have suffered from addiction. My father died as an alcoholic, and that was a hard thing for me to go through. So when I see Mass and Cass, the human beings, I see them through the lens of my family, and we need to fight as hard as we possibly can to make sure that we bring solutions to Mass and Cass and other parts of the district. My journey in the South End began about 24 years ago, as I said, and I have to admit that when I arrived here, I was not comfortable as a gay man. I applaud this community for giving me the opportunity to really become myself. I joined Boston Gay Men's Chorus. I joined many community events. I just felt myself here, and it was a very powerful thing, and it really enabled me to flourish as an individual, and I'll forever be grateful for that. And it's time for me to give back right now to the community that gave me so much, and I'll do so just that as your next elected state rep. I think someone might ask me, why are you running and why now? I think I channel my parents a little bit in the sense that they were always there, focused on community service, always putting community first, even though we didn't have much. There was a focus in our family on giving back to the community and how important that was and how vital the community was. This campaign is about the community and experiences we share together. I've earned the support of Councilor Tanya Fernandez-Anderson because of my work, the D7 Advisory Council for the last year and a half. And I hope that you'll support me listening as I learn more about your journeys, as I knock on doors, as we know in the campaigns, knocking on a lot of doors every day. So I thank you. And if you're interested in learning more about me, go to johnmoran9.com. Thanks very much.
Okay, so the floor is now open for questions. You can feel free to raise your hand if you have a question here, or use the hand raise function if you're joining on the Zoom. And if you do have a question, we'll make sure that the mic gets to you. So any questions?
I would just be interested in knowing a little more specifics about your background, what you've been doing, what your work experience has been, what your community experience has been. I think slogans are wonderful, but I've learned not to trust them.
So yeah, I think Jane's point was that she wanted to know a little more specifically about my background and my bio, and definitely have it outlaid on my website, but absolutely. I started off at Earlham College, which is a Quaker college in Indiana. And there Quakers are very much known for their service. So we volunteered in the community. I was a Japanese studies major, which is a little unusual. That's why I ended up in the Midwest. The school was really good at it. And I went after college, I was the coordinator for international relations in Japan. So I spoke Japanese and worked for a local government office where I served a governor trying to build bridges between the United States and Japan. And then I, after that, went to the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, where again, I found my way with policy and also studied international business. So following that, I spent many years in business, including a company called GTEC, a company called Bose, where I learned to navigate and understand many different aspects of corporate world, including communications and finance. I migrated over to Liberty Mutual here in town. And I'd like to say, it's probably a little crass, but I'd like to say I did everything there but take out the garbage because I was in international acquisitions and I was then an underwriter. But then I found my way in really doing two things that have then really kind of propelled my career after that. One is what's called Lean Six Sigma or continuous improvement, which is helping people solve problems. So I loved it, kind of channeled my service aspect because there are problems that occur all over companies. They need to understand the process and how to fix it. So I was kind of the fix-it doctor. I spent some time in Ireland. I spent some time in Hong Kong doing that. In addition to that, I also got another sort of forte that I love, which is helping people through change. So it's called change management in parlance of both the nonprofit sector. So after that, so Jane, it's like as part of that, the whole time though, I've always been really interested in and invested in the community. So part of the Concord Square Association here, and then if you want to prove it, just look at I was going to joke, look at my 311 reports because I'm the guy that's always going around making sure the garbage is clean. So that initial conversation is very, very important. But the other thing I might say is that for the last year and a half, you pivot to that, I kind of brought that community service and that mentality to the next level by joining the District 7 Advisory Council for Tanya Fernandez-Anderson. And that was very eye-opening to me in the sense that I saw firsthand the disparity between Roxbury and our part of the South End, the income gaps, education gaps. And I spent many a day, many, of course, every Saturday and kind of trying to understand that. So that's why I've gained their support, because I feel like they know that I'm a listener, that I care. I'm on the development committee. And also as part of that, I kind of spread my wings a little bit to work with ADCO, which is the Alliance of Downtown Civic Organizations, to support the efforts going on in the city council, which is, to really reform Article 80. And so I co-authored a white paper with ADCO. So I'm very involved. And what I found there, Jane, was that it's really my calling to leverage all of these skills and apply them to the community. It's sort of my calling, if you will, to do that.
Other questions about that? Here, I'll sorry. Like, oh, you have a question too? Okay.
Hi, John. When you think about this new role, how much time have you spent with John Santiago trying to learn about the specifics? And would you commit here to support Mayor in the legislature in home rule petition?
So Ben, just to clarify, in home rule, you mean do you mean Article 80 or do you mean rent control? I don't know if they're both home rule, but what's that?
Rent control.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So fine. So first, then, in terms of how much time I've spent with John, I do admire John a lot. I learned from John, especially through the process of the development that was about to happen, which would have taken rights away from from Concord Houses residents. And I fought hard there, and he taught me a lot of things. And part of that is how to organize, how to really kind of see problems from the most vulnerable. Look at that lens. So I spent a lot of time with him in that context, but also, I'm the guy that sort of, I just can't help it, but helps the person get a license next door that lives there. And how does that work? There's a lot of issues that I've involved with, and both from a from a principal involved in it, but also helping others. So I definitely understand. I think what John was very good at is listening to both sides, distilling the information, bringing the resources to bear. As we know from a South End perspective, this is an important role because oftentimes, we have 3 different city councilors. Oftentimes, issues get lost. So that's what I learned from him the most. And I think from the many meetings I've been involved, I definitely feel like I've learned an awful lot. Of course, I have a lot more to learn. You wouldn't take a role if you didn't have more to learn, for sure. In terms of the home rule petition, I do fundamentally believe that we need cities and towns should make their own decisions versus relative to rent control. And so I understand that we are in a crisis. We're in an affordable housing crisis. We need to address it with many different tools. And I think that this may be one sort of tool in our toolbox. I will say as well, though, again, this is what I learned from John, is you have to listen to all sides. So I am speaking with individual small landlords. And what I want to make sure, this is really important, I want to make sure that this won't go the way that short-term rentals went, where major corporations are taking advantage of loopholes and they're getting away with a lot, where I can't rent my house out for more than 90 days. There's a big corporation at 44 Concord Square that's taking advantage of the rental situation, and they use the loophole, which is the lodging house loophole, and now it's a glorified Airbnb. There's also the healthcare exemption. So I guess I'm saying I support it for sure, but we need to be really careful to make sure that our small mom and pop landlords are not penalized by it. So that's just a refinement, but overall, I totally agree with that we should support cities and towns to make their own decisions and have a vigorous debate at the city council level about the merits or demerits of such a proposal.
I have two questions for you. With respect to the affordable home ownership, what, if any, deed restrictions do you propose or support? And my second question is with the Article 80 process, aside from community input, what changes would you be supportive of?
Sorry. Yeah, no, for sure. So they're both good questions. The first is really, I definitely understand that, although their Commonwealth Builder Fund has funds associated with it that we can build, particularly for communities of color, we can build home ownership. My understanding is just what you're saying in terms of there's a call in the D7 Advisory Council that we have deed restrictions. I don't agree with those deed restrictions. I feel like that's my mantra is to build security and equity over the long haul. And so if one is able to buy those homes, I know there's a building in the Fenway that one of my colleagues on the D7AC was very upset to learn that there are deed restrictions. So I don't support those deed restrictions. Really understand. And so I feel like that is something I'm clear about. In terms of Article 80 changes, I think your question was, can you maybe clarify your question a little bit? Like, what would I like to change? Yeah. I think so. Just to clarify too, maybe if I can, for the community input perspective, I think what we learned, what we came about with the Article 80, it's not really Article 80 itself that's potentially needing some tweaking. It is obviously needing some tweaking. It's what comes before that. And so I'm all about community input, and we need to have almost an application that could give us insight as citizens what conversations are going on in the BPDA. And so we have kind of pulse on it. So I feel like it's definitely community input. It's overall transparency because if you look at Article 80, and I'm a process guy, right? So I look at that and someone says, well, it seems like it's an easy process. It's not really that easy. I mean, from the Back Bay, Elliot Laffer will tell you that it's documented, but having spent, decades working on processes, I don't feel like it's that clear. It's a little Byzantine. The other major thing I'd like to do is, and this is a little controversial, but the IAGs or the impact assessment groups have become, I call them kabuki plays. They're basically, there may be some amenities you get from those, but essentially by the time the IAG process comes about, there's too many decisions. And I'll even look at it from the side of the developers. There's too much that has happened on the side of developers, too much investment. We need to basically think of it from both sides, but let's not get to the stage where we're pretending that the community is really going to impact the design in fundamental ways or anything else. That's not the case. So we basically need to rethink it and get that input up front.
So I'm looking at your poster here and it says Better Days. From a specifically District 9 perspective, what does Better Days mean?
Great question, and thanks for addressed a little bit of it. I think we need more for our most vulnerable. We need to protect their rights. We need to have home ownership. And, that's Better Days because you go now on Concord Square, it's become, there are a lot of beautiful, and it's very diverse, but, a better day would be when someone could actually buy a house on there that is a person of color or a person that wouldn't necessarily be a multimillionaire buying a condo. So that's a better day. I think Better Days is more greenery. So in protecting our greenery so that we don't exacerbate asthma in our cities. A better day is schools that actually are functional and that we could have. I talked to so many people knocking on doors that are moving from the area because they don't have a school that their child can go to. And that's a pity because we live in one of the most advanced education. We live in one of those advanced states in the world, and particularly in Boston. So we should really double down on that. That's a better day. And I think a better day would be transportation that actually works. So that's part of my system as well. We need to be able to get there. And I spoke to, a few people the other day where we need to make sure that we get from everyone can get without a car, they can get all the way through the new market area, they can get down, shop and come back very seamlessly. That's going to take some investment. And I think for that, there's things we can do. I think we need to basically make sure that the monies that are put into the millionaire's tax are actually going to go to absolutely go to transportation and education.
Is there a question in the back?
Hi, John. You spoke about Mass and Cass and how there was a humanitarian crisis and that we needed to fix it. Probably everyone in the room agrees with that. I'm wondering if you could give some specifics on your ideas on how to do that.
Thank you, Andy, for that question. And I've thought a lot about this. I think the current approach to Mass and Cass is a rigorous one, and I love the fact that it's looking at it from a holistic human perspective, right? So it's looking at it. There are individuals whom are have mental health issues, have other issues, and it's being addressed holistically. And I think like in my experience with whether it be in the community or elsewhere, you sort of test and learn things, right? What are we learning from it? What's working? What's not working? So what I'd like to think about adding is especially with where we are in the court system, I'd really love to get the Long Island Bridge reopened, because I know from my own family's history that having a recovery center that's holistic, that has mental health capacity and other aspects is very, very important. I know it's expensive, but we put people on the moon. I think we can figure out how to get the money, and there's already money that the Walsh administration left that we can potentially leverage to get the bridge built. And I think as well, I don't understand. I'm a gay man, so I went to a community health center that gave me comfort, and I just don't understand why community health centers across the city can't treat with people with clean needle programs. It's puzzling to me that we need to focus. I know we need it's an and conversation. It's not and either this or that. I think we can get community health centers to help out and have needle exchange programs and treat patients just as you treat anything else. In Fenway Health was the AIDS crisis, and they were treating people, and it wasn't stigmatized. Why is it any different if someone is addicted to a drug? Why can't they be treated there? So those are some of the things I would do if I were elected, or I would push for if I were elected.
So in the interest of time, I will have to pause with one final question. If people want to learn more about your campaign or ask you additional questions, how can they reach you? Where should they go?
They could either email my private email, which I could give, or John at johnmoran9.com. So John at johnmoran9.com, or Frank, my campaign manager, at johnmoran9.com. But I thank you very much, everybody, for your great. Thank you, Chary.
Hello, everyone. I'm not quite sure where to place this.
If you want to say, you can do whatever's convenient for you. As long as it makes close to your
All right, first of all, I'm actually gonna, this is my first. Hey, thank you for welcoming myself. So I'm gonna actually just be reading a little bit more. John, great job. So how do I start off? Well, I'm Chary Ortiz, and I'm a Latina woman, and a mother of 2 daughters who I raised in the Boston public school system. I grew up in public housing, and since you're all from the community, I could say I grew up in Cathedral. And I'm still here in the neighborhood. I've been a person who has lived paycheck to paycheck, not knowing if I would be able to care for my kids and my family. I've been fortunate enough to hold a job with Boston University for 25 years here in our neighborhood. So I am that person who understands the changes of our district and what it's going through. I would like for families to be able to stay here foremost, and then this is a community that has taken care of my family. So I know that that is possible. In my journey here in the South End and knowing that I wanted to do better for myself and my kids, I decided to venture out and join a couple of community initiatives. So I've been on the board of the Blackstone Community Center. I've been on the board of the South End Community Health Center. And I am currently on the board of the Puerto Rican Festival Planning Committee. So Latina power, right? This district, our home, is currently so rich, yet so disconnected, you know. But I do believe in the potential of this community, and that by coming together, we can close the gap and make our neighbors stronger. I know that we can make a real difference by focusing our efforts on housing affordability, home ownership opportunities, youth development, both inside and outside of their classroom, and thinking about a community approach to safety. One thing we know is that while we are different, we all want the same thing: a fruitful and vibrant community. I get emotional. But also a safe community that comes together to support each other and make an entire neighborhood stronger. And this is why I feel that I'm asking and ask in terms of like being that state representative that actually represents that community. They still need the voice. They still need to be represented in a way where when the policymakers and everybody is making these decisions, that we are still on the table because we're still here. And before I close this up, I have a very special person, or before the Q&A, I have a very special person who has joined me today. And it's my daughter, Adelina Rodriguez, and I would like to bring her up because she's my biggest cheerleader, and she's still in the Boston Public School. So I was wondering if she would just want to say a little something.
Hi, I'm Adelina Rodriguez. I'm her daughter. I'm 16 and I'm a sophomore, and I go to Josiah Quincy Upper School in Chinatown. I think it's been really awesome to see my mom be a part of conversations like these, because I look around and there's not a lot of people like us in rooms like this, you know, making decisions and being able to, you know, speak out. And I feel like she's been here, you know, for 40 something years. And somebody that experiences these things like firsthand and has been able to see all these things for many years now and seeing the changes that we still need. And I feel like there's still a lot of, you know, learning to do and what she's doing and being able to have like our community. And I feel like everybody like in their input and their opinions on what they feel like we need. And because I see a bright future for what she's gonna do. So thank you guys.
With that being said, as exciting and new that all this is for me, none of these things that are being brought to the table, it cannot be done unless we unify and really bring either like the experts, our community. We need all of you, and we need everyone else who is not here in order to make some decisions that are not just one-sided, that are just really gonna be beneficial to, and it's just not our community. We're seeing it across the whole state of Massachusetts, but it can only be done if we work together.
Awesome. And so the floor is now open for questions. Again, if you're here, raise your hand. If you're on Zoom, use the hand raise function. Carol and then Margaret, and then you're close enough so I can quickly pass this over to you.
So thank you. I'm just curious, you've been at BU for 25 years. So can you talk a little bit about the work you've done? I mean, I'm sure it's changed over 25 years. Talk about the kinds of things you've done and.
I mean, I don't want to take too much time, right?
Oh, maybe what you.
Maybe. In 1998, I've been a product of like the public system, right? Getting assistance. 1998, I had an opportunity of an internship to go into, administrative work at BU. I launched that internship and I've been there ever since. I started as an administrative assistant, financial coordinator, and now I am an assistant director to academic partnerships. So I deal with a lot of external partners for the program that I currently handle. That being said, I have lived this cliff effect where it's like people don't want you in the system. I've been in the system. I have worked my way up financially, lost resources, found myself in a place where I even am now, right? Wanting my daughter and always talked about being a homeowner and what does that look like, not even making enough now at this point to qualify for certain resources. So it's kind of like I'm stuck in this, for better word, box. Where it's like they want you to come off the system, but there's not enough support, or what is there for you to continue to grow and maintain. I've had times where it's just like culturally or where you're like thinking, it's like, wow, do I like this? What do I do to just get to that next level? Because, oh my God. Now I'm like, maybe I could potentially, I would never at this point be able to say if by choice, wanted to stay in the South End is like out of my reach. And I think there's a lot of people like me here in our community, and just having those resources in place or those opportunities where they, listen, let's really outline what is even housing affordability. I've been trying to work that math for like 5 years now. Whether I apply, do I even understand? Does it MAI? What's that mean? How many people in our community don't even apply? I just started to apply like maybe 2 years ago just because whether I knew whether I actually could afford it or not, or did that make sense? And then I called for a couple of lotteries, and once I started doing the math, I'm like, I'm paying like $500 more than what I can potentially, what's in my bracket. So how can they say, oh, let's bring you in, and you can like think when I'm going $500 more of what my initial income bracket is. Having an understanding as I'm going through this process, how many more people are not lost. One understanding, and to just be like straight up, affordable to whom? Kind of just breaking that down. And just making it real. And not just having this thing where it's affordable housing, let's build things that are, I mean, I don't think, and I don't know, not speaking for everyone, right? But I don't think anybody should be paying over 35% of their income. Even if you're a homeowner, they tell you you should like remain at a certain level, right? If you have a partner, then maybe you can go 40. But I'm a single mom. And even 40 and getting paid once a month on salary, I'm like really going through like, well, how much else do I have for food and any other expenses? So I think that this is a real crisis. This is real for even people who feel that they're comfortable living here because they.
I'm in what you're running for. What made you wake up one morning and say, I want to be a state legislator? And if elected, where do you see the majority of your energies being devoted? Like, what would be the perfect committees for you to serve on, given your background? Like, what mark do you want to make in a legislative body that thrives on collaboration when it works well, which is not all the time. So just be clear. I'm interested in knowing like how you see yourself in the job that you're running for.
I wasn't ready for that question, but I'm gonna come with this. That anybody that stands forward, whether you decided or someone else decided that you could be this voice, I feel that this is a position that is a gift. That not everyone can stand forward and not just be here to think of either a name or get, but I mean, this is not just thinking about your family. This is like an extension of your family. It's I only had like 2 weeks to think about this. But I was already doing the work, you know, like I may not have thought that I was doing the work. So when someone else said, wow, I think that you could be that person, I didn't sleep for 2 days because I'm like, just still trying to like go from work, come back. No, it happened. I had another year where I was injured and healing. But sometimes, you know, I bring God in or higher power or things that there's other greater things that are, and you have to step up to the plate and say that, let me try, because if I don't try, I don't know what tomorrow, what I could have done, one. And what I can do is like, again, what would be my connection for most of anything is really bringing the power of the voices that we're not hearing today. So if there's anything that I can do is really diving into creating a unity that I don't think has been done yet. Because as I look around the room, I feel a lot of people are missing. It could be that people don't want to. It could be that they don't know. It could, but we're so rich in resources in our community right now. I've been fortunate because I'm like, know that when I'm here, I need to get here. And if I don't speak, my mom used to have this saying that said, if you don't speak, God doesn't hear you. So regardless of like, I think that maybe there's just a lot of voices that no one has gone to and say, what do you need? Or what is your opinion of what is going on? And it's just take that to just build. And that's where I stay strong, where I know and I feel in my heart that bringing our worlds, right, as different as we are, we're still human. We still want the best for our family. And how do we bring that together to just be stronger?
Thanks, Jonathan. So I'm gonna have a few questions for you, but I want to piggyback off of Carol's question and sort of maybe rephrase it a little bit. Because I think you and your story are very relatable to a lot of people. And I think you keep on hitting at the fact that there are voices that haven't been heard. And you have made comments about outcomes and policies being one-sided. So from your perspective, what do you think is the area that has been the most one-sided, or the thing that you want to really pinpoint and change the most? Like what one aspect? I mean, I'm sure you have many, but like if there's just one that you would pick, what would it be and what would you do to change it? And then my other question is just out of fairness, since I asked it of John, and because you also mentioned affordable housing, what do you think, and what, if any, deed restrictions would you propose on affordable housing opportunities?
That was like a lot, right? So like the first piece. So the first question, if I don't. Yeah. Right. I mean, I'll keep going back to affordable housing. Because I don't know when that happened. I don't know where I was. I don't know when they came back and said, I mean, I'm a product of someone who's still in the South End, who the landlord decided not to renew HUD, the 30-year HUD program, right? So it was subsidized. Then there's this misconception that they just want to give people like Section 8. So you give you Section 8 and they say they get so excited, you can get Section 8, you can move on or wherever you want to go. Right? I mean, that's where I was given a voucher so that I can remain where I am until I reach a certain income limit. Now, if I was to move out, the Section 8 doesn't work, right? So I can't go from like this street to the next street and still have subsidy. I would have to then figure out how do I buy a home or where do I go in order to afford my current situation. So yeah, affordable housing. They switched this whole system to just say, this is what we're doing. Let's put in affordable housing into the language. How many of us really understood what that meant? I think initially a lot of people were like, oh, affordable. Let's go into that. Let's try to figure that out. But how many families actually qualify, right? So that's my piece. And then the other question was deed restrictions. So are we talking about like rent control and all that stuff, or?
Your deed restriction. Probably how much for the purchase of the house itself, like how much equity that people have to get. And they thought that affordable.
So I think it's capped like at 3%. Are we talking like every year it just grows 3%? Is that where we're talking about?
Well, it has the amount of.
Right. Right.
And then.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding or we're talking about the same thing, as I've been doing my 100th home ownership session, still not there. And whether I was gonna be able to, I just looked at that piece as like a 5-year stepping stone, me personally. 3% of like whatever equity you're gonna like think. To me, I just looked at it, well, I do my 5 years and whatever that amount, I give somebody else another opportunity to be able. So I never looked at it as like an income benefit for myself. But those are things to talk about, right? Because I was thinking of like me being a homeowner, getting myself there. And whatever that amount grew 5 years from that, then I can give someone else an opportunity. But those are conversations that need to happen, right? Because if right now we're like thinking about what even affordable housing is, and we can't even get people stay in our neighborhood, then we need to reconstruct, because that's when I come back is like low income and working class. It almost feels like they want to keeping us in a box. Like you can only do so much to do whatever, but how do you continue to, when I could win the lottery? I mean, I could have done a lot of stuff with my life if I had the opportunity, but my life didn't work like that. So do I need to be punished financially for the rest of my life, or I don't know. There's stuff. I'm sure there's people here that know finances and stocks. Show us the rules of how we get out of this, right? We don't want to be limited. So anyway, so that's when I come back and say, let's bring everybody to the table, whether it's financial housing, math and cash is another issue, right? Bring the experts to the table. What are the implementation, what's happening? Let us all be at the table to help us understand how we can make better decisions in general, right? I mean, if this room right now, we're not gonna be doing too much unless we extend this across the board.
So I need to go with like pretty good time. My final question, as my last question was before, if people have additional questions for you or want to learn more, how do they?
My website apparently is gonna come up tomorrow. So I'll give you first my email, I'll give you my personal email, and I'll give you my website information. My personal email is Chary, CHARYORTIZ 1230@gmail.com. And then my website is going to be charyfor9.com, and hopefully I'll launch tomorrow. Thank you guys for having me here.
Before we formally close to the evening, I just wanted to see if anybody has announcements that you had wanted to have you had. So. Oh, we need the mic. Let me get the mic. Thank you.
Our member Jackie Royce is a member of a brand new organization called Boston Green Action. You won't be surprised that Jackie's involved with environmental activism. One of Boston Green Action's big pushes right now is to get people to sign up for Boston Community Choice Electric program in Boston. You remember at our last meeting, we had the program manager who just did a wonderful presentation. Jackie asked if I would pass these flyers out tonight, and if you would each take a couple and give it to people that you think don't know about BCCE and might want to sign up. It's a really smart thing to do. So I'll put these in the middle of the table, and thank you from Jackie.
in the-
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. I've been involved with education ever. Some of you know I was on the Boston School Committee. I was on the Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. I just want to state a concern I have with what's going on in the state and education from our governor, who I hope might do something a little more progressive with some of the appointments in education. So she appointed the Secretary of Education, which I'm very hopeful of. He is not as senior as some of the other cabinet appointments. So I have like Kate Wall.